Yo, what's going on, my show? I'm here with a brand new video for you guys today. Welcome to my reaction. I hope you all feeling good both mentally and physically. Today, I got a reaction video for you guys today called "Why is American Patriotism So Weird?" by Second Thought. So, as always, because my reaction videos, the link to their video will be the first link in the box below. Check the video out. Please, the algorithm will guys by giving them a like, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff. And I hope you all enjoy this reaction of their video. It's interesting. I was actually going to do this video on 4th of July. It's been sitting in my freaking watch later list since the 4th of July. And I was like, all right, that's 2 on those. We'll just do it another day. And here's that other day where we're just going to do it now on American patriotism, which, you know, is basically just at this point just tribalism. A lot of American patriotism is just tribalism. And, you know, for some extent, people will, you know, say good. But I will also say when it comes to American patriotism that a lot of reasons why it is weird is for a lot of people, mostly older white people in America, they don't think that you can be both a proud American and proud of your heritage and your ancestry. Like, you know, you see on social media, like when you're trying to be like pro Native American. Like for myself, for example, I am Black and Native American and Irish on my mother's side, and I'm very proud of my ancestry, my heritage entirely. So, and I'll broadcast that. I'll have like banners, things like this, Native American Heritage Month and Black History, things like that. Very proud of it. And people are like, well, you should be proud to be American. It's like, I am. It's you can be proud to be American and proud to come from, you know, Africa. You can be proud to be American and proud to be from Mexico. You can be proud American and be a proud Puerto Rican. It's not mutually exclusive. It's not something that you can't like being part of another line of ancestry. And I think part of why that exists is because a lot of modern white people don't really feel connected to their roots, you know, and they're not as ingrained with their roots as people of color are. You know, if you're Asian American, whether you're from East Asia, Southeast Asia, wherever, you're very, very tied to your roots. If you're Black, you're tied to your roots. If you're Native American, you're tied to your roots. We're all tied to roots, even when it comes to like, you know, people who are like first generation immigrants to America from Europe. If you're Italian, Scottish, Irish, if you're French, if you know, you are tied to your roots. You're proud to be, you know, a French American. You're proud of all that stuff. Whereas like if you and your ancestors were like, you know, like if your earliest ancestor to America was from England in 1770 freaking whatever, you don't really have a lot of like things to like be tied down to, because, you know, historically, you know, incorrectly, more than likely, England isn't viewed as like, you know, this massive entity to be proud of. Like you don't have a lot of your heritage to be proud of. And I feel like because of that, white Americans, you know, who are of English descent, don't really have roots that they're proud of. You know, whereas like if you're a white American and you have ancestors to Germany, you love Oktoberfest, you love all these German things, and or if you're Hungarian or Greek, you love all these Greek things. You don't have that if you know you aren't tied to your roots. And I feel like these people who are way too patriotic and kind of like wants people to not be proud of their roots and just be pro America 24/7, part of that is because they just don't have anything else to be tied to other than America. So now that, you know, my reaction, you know, tangent is out the way, let's get into the reaction video.
This episode and others like it are brought to you by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support this channel, join our patrons-only Discord, and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. To a non-American, driving down roads lined with American flags, past people dressed like this, past fields where, hand on heart, Americans sing along to the national anthem for even the most forgotten Little League game, and past bars where a USA chant is on a hair trigger is all very strange. Every Ford commercial in this country is about how the US is sick as hell. Every bald eagle is swole. Every beer is a gun. And a kid just pledging allegiance to the flag is a heartwarming story on national television. In no other country in the world is there such a widespread emotional attachment to the symbols of a bureaucratic government structure. It's incredibly strange, but I get that a lot of patriotism is just having fun. For a lot of people, it's like wearing your team's colors to a game. It's a good time. The problem is,
I would say, I know we're pausing early, this exists on a spectrum. People are very, very proud of where they come from, and they show it when they need to. Like if you watch international sports, You know, that's where you get to start. So you start to see like the other countries show how patriotic they are. You know, when you see, you know, Colombia or Eastland, you know, anyone go on a soccer pitch and they start, you know, performing the national anthem, they're singing their hearts out. Some of them will be crying, both men and women in international sports will be crying during the national anthem because they're just that proud. You see the crowd all chanting and singing along, and some people in the crowd crying. They don't lack patriotism. It's just, it's not as in your face as America.
That's not all that patriotism or its defense is. Almost every week, I get an email calling me a traitor or anti-American scum. For some reason, in this country, good faith criticism almost always triggers this knee-jerk reaction that the person raising their concerns, or more often just advocating for their own self-determination, hates America.
And I guarantee you, if I was someone important, if I had a bigger following, everything I've said in this video up to this point would have someone going, "You're not American. Go back to Africa. You know, even if you're, you know, you got some Native American blood, so you do have, you know, ownership to being in America. You know, you're not a real American. You're not a patriot." It's like, I love America. You can criticize a place and still love it, you know, because you want it to be better. Like, there's things that America doesn't do good, and I want America to be the best country in the world by improving those bad things, you know. And I used to be that kid in high school who would get pissed off when people will talk during the pledge. Now I don't really care because, you know, America is in a position right now where it's really good to like be a whole little, you know, going all at it with the pledge. You know, I'll do that when America is better for humanity and society as a whole. But, you know, but what he's saying though, like, you will get all this hate mail and hate reactions and things like that and be called anti-American or not American at all. You know, when you're in good faith, like, you're saying things that aren't meant to be like bashing the country, but you just want the country to be better as a whole. A better America is just what people want.
Let's take an example. Here's an email I got from someone who probably genuinely believes they love their country and thinks what they're doing is a justified defense. And you know what? Let's give this viewer the benefit of the doubt. If you wholeheartedly believe that someone hates you and or the place you call home, it's not entirely unreasonable to get angry with them like this. But here's the thing. If you really want to label yourself patriotic, this kind of approach is completely counterproductive. Think about it for a second. If you care about your country, you should be among the first to call out problems when you see them. If you love your country and your fellow Americans, you should want to fix those problems, not blindly defend them. This kind of behavior isn't patriotic. It's ignorant.
Do we need to point out like how silly and asinine that this image is?
Not blindly defend.
Let's see if we can get to it.
This kind of
this right here. No, we're not going to go like on a whole rant about the Confederate flag, but America up here, the United States of America, fought against the Confederacy. You were being in a logical sense. Now you could say I'm just being, you know, proud to be from the South. Cool, whatever. But in a broad stroke of generalization, if you rock this flag, you are anti-American because they fought against America. If you have these two flags together like this, the founding fathers or the people who fought during that war would be upset, like, excuse you? You know, this would be like, you know, we're going to say it, if someone in Germany had the modern German flag and then also had, like, you know, the Nazi flag. There's like, people will be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? That's a stretch. You know, but like it's kind of the same thing when it comes to like you're combining two things that aren't alike. You know, this is an enemy of this one. They don't like each other. You can't be both. You can't be pro-Confederacy and pro-America. It's not how that works.
Behavior isn't patriotic. It's ignorant. All those quote-unquote traitors are doing is bringing attention to problems that all of us should want to solve. There's nothing un-American about caring for your unhoused neighbors. Nothing unreasonable about pointing out that our medical bills are the highest in the world and that we should work to lower them. It's not being a traitor to suggest that the United States is not living up to the standards it claims to set for itself and the rest of the world. And it's not un-American to identify that the root of the problem runs pretty deep. I think we can all agree that these problems exist. That's not the issue most of the time. The issue comes when someone suggests that the cause of these problems is structural, and therefore requires structural change. A lot of these problems, these things that we can all agree are hurting people both in this country and beyond our borders, aren't just a matter of bad people. They are an integral part of the American experiment, going all the way back to the country's founding and the principles our economy is built on. And it's okay to point that out. The Constitution allows for amendments because it was written with the idea that things would change, and what was accepted by the Founding Fathers doesn't have to be accepted by us today. Just because the Constitution is still around,
yeah, like it's again, this is kind of a generalization, but it's like he's telling the truth. Like, America's not supposed to be the same in 2023 that it was in 1776. It's supposed to be the same in 2023 as it was in 1960. But in a lot of ways, it is. You know, the same conversations that we're having right now in our society are the same conversations that they were having in the 1800s and in the early 1900s. Like, things aren't really changing for America because we have these people who don't think change needs to happen because that's anti-American to have change.
Is still around doesn't mean that everything in it is good or works. It just means that it's a document that effectively protected its own existence.
At
Fun
the time,
fact,
especially.
many of the Founding Fathers, who are always portrayed as dusty old dudes in History Channel documentaries, were actually in their 20s. You wouldn't want a constitution written by a bunch of frat boys to be immortal and unchangeable, would you? Okay, so hopefully I've made it clear that a better conception of patriotism—
I'll tell you this right now, a lot of you freaking like boomers out there, and I just use it as a joke, I'm not really trying to insult anybody, like, you would not let an 18-year-old tell you how to do anything. You would. If you're in your freaking 50s or 60s and older, you wouldn't let an 18-year-old tell you what to do. But I think more or less when I was talking about the Constitution is that, you know, you can't use it as, you know, basically a shield for any kind of hatred that you have towards another people or against change. You know, the idea of it is it has to evolve because humanity has to evolve.
Would require a willingness to soberly assess and tackle our country's problems. With that, we've already broached the topic of what's called uncritical patriotism. But there's no reason we can't let go of patriotism entirely, and this video will make that claim for American patriotism specifically. Patriotism, especially here in the States, doesn't actually build genuine solidarity like the glorified image of patriotism might have you believe. It's not really about standing together in any meaningful way. Instead, patriotism in this country actually reinforces divisions along aesthetic lines convenient to those in power. It encourages exceptionalist thinking and xenophobia, with consequences neither good for the world nor for average Americans. And having been in—
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this right now, and if you don't understand this concept I'm about to say, that's more telling of you than anything else, but xenophobia is anti-American. You know, if you preach about, you know, the betterment of the country, if you are a patriot for America being a better country overall and getting rid of, you know, hatred, bigotry, things like that, but you're xenophobic, you're anti-American. Xenophobia is anti-American.
Injected with anti-communist rhetoric during the Cold War, patriotism has become this loyalty to the myth that the US is the sole bastion of goodness and freedom in the world, which makes any claim that something might be wrong, unjust, and possible for us to change seem like a declaration of war. Let's talk about that. Patriotism is always promoted as solidarity. Behind the symbols, the territory, the language, the culture, whatever patriotism attaches itself to, its main draw isn't we all like these three colors, it's community and solidarity with other people. This idea that even people you've never met and will never meet are there for you and you're there for them. It's a nice idea, and said in this abstract way, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But there are a couple problems with the reality of patriotic quote-unquote solidarity. For starters, it obviously doesn't extend to everyone, and patriotic solidarity specifically is weaponized for conservative ends. The political scientist Benedict Anderson puts it very clearly when he says, regardless of the actual inequality and exploitation that may prevail in each, the nation is always conceived as a deep, horizontal comradeship. And as you might expect, this is something that those who benefit from inequality and exploitation can use. If enough people can be convinced that unity along the lines of nationality is more important than pretty much anything else, then calling attention to all the internal conflicts within a society can be swept under the rug as dividing us. For patriots, unity
Which
is
you hear a lot. If you're on the internet, social media, YouTube, whatever, you hear it a lot. You hear whenever someone says, like, hey, this is racist, you hear people in the comments go, racism isn't real anymore. Racism has went away like decades ago, this is all just division. Like you see that as like a conservative talking point of like, you know, there is no actual racism, there is no systematic racism, there is no homophobia and transphobia and things like that. It's just all something that exists to divide. Like that's what metaphor they will like repeat, you know, to kind of like cover up their own bigotry and to like, you know, also do the usual point blame at the left or the right.
Makes the country proud and strong. So it's better not to point out how that unity is held together by one group oppressing another, or we might risk losing that unity. But obviously, not calling out oppression benefits the people doing the oppressing. Through the idea of the nation, people come to identify with their exploiters in a way that justifies their continued existence. For example, some people are proud that their country has more billionaires than other countries. For some reason, being born within a couple thousand miles of one another and within the same border gets people to identify with those who have hoarded more wealth than we can even understand. Most people share almost nothing in common with their country's billionaires, and almost everything with the average person in another country. But that feeling of pride gets them to disregard one set of differences and makes the smaller differences with foreigners seem a lot bigger. As a result, the exploitation that is necessary for billionaires to exist seems less important when we're told it's in the service of something we share, the greatness of America. Even though the greatness of America does almost nothing to make your life better, but billionaires getting tax cuts and skirting labor laws definitely makes it worse.
Say g'day to friendly faces.
This is something that's really apparent when conservative patriots talk about the experience of Black Americans, for example. In a recent interview, the conservative economist Glenn Loury said, quote, "Look, here we are. We are African Americans, but we are Americans first. We are not African in any way that's meaningful. Yes, our ancestors may have been enslaved, but they were also emancipated. We are literally the richest and most powerful people of African descent on the entire planet. We have 10 times the income on average of the typical Nigerian. There's an enormous black middle class and black billionaires." The translation: pride in the existence of the possibility of black success justifies the continued exploitation of the vast majority of black people. If you are black, you should be grateful to have the incredibly unlikely chance to have more money than you know what to do with, instead of complaining that this system is rigged against you, and in a similar way, is rigged against other black people in another country. By implying that Black Americans should prioritize their national affiliation rather than their class and race, Loury is subtly implying that Black Americans should not be so critical of a system with a legal and policing system that targets and kills them disproportionately, that exploits their racial otherness to deny them a comfortable life unless they assimilate to the dominant white norms of behavior, and that Black Americans should distance themselves from people living in another country whose poverty can be explained, at least in part, by the same phenomenon of slavery that is at the root of the present inequality between black and white people in America. The fact that other people have it worse turns rightful indignation into pride for those who can be convinced, and makes those who stay rightfully indignant look ungrateful. Loury defends capitalism, and he knows that capitalism requires exploitation. He's just hoping that by calling attention to your nationality, you'll accept how exploited you are because someone else has it worse. A non-patriotic approach might look at the inequality between Black Americans and Black Nigerians and find that the plunder of Africa through colonialism and slavery caused both the present inequality between white and Black Americans and the inequality between Americans and Nigerians, and from there can ask what should be done to rectify this injustice, and what structures are keeping it in place. By contrast, a patriotic approach to these facts gets people to think that the best we can do is protect what we have. Never try to get more. Never question the nature of the system as it exists today, and never hope to achieve justice, especially—
Yeah, so like this last bit is kind of like pretty much like just maintain the status quo. You know, that's what a true patriot would do. A true patriot will just maintain the status quo. A true patriot will lie down and bleed. A true patriot will allow to be tread on. You know about the "Don't Tread on Me" flag? A true patriot wouldn't use that flag, because a true patriot would allow the government and the police and those who are, you know, taking part in any kind of form of racism or bigotry to step on them, tread all over their property, because the American thing would be the most patriotic thing to do, would just be to allow America to do exactly whatever it wants to do, and you just accept it. Accept the status quo is what it wants, and it's like, I don't think that's an American thing. Like if you're a patriot of a country that has the word united in its name, that wants to unite all the nations within. Because remember, before America was America, it was 13 colonies. So it was multiple nations coming into becoming one nation. You can't be one nation if there's bigotry, if there's phobias, if there's all this injustice and systematic abuse that exists. It's not American at all to want to continue the status quo.
For those not part of the patriotic community. At the end of the day, the existence of black billionaires still relies on the exploitation of black people, and is still supported by the systemic discrimination of black people. But drown all that in a little American pride, and it goes down a lot smoother. To recap, patriotism replaces solidarity among people who suffer under the same structures of injustice, in this case international racial capitalism, and replaces it with solidarity between those who do the oppressing and those who are oppressed. Let me seriously ask, what is the point of patriotism? Why choose to believe you're better or even meaningfully different from someone on the other side of the world? Your material concerns are the same. You have bills, you want to take care of your family, you want the freedom to pursue your own happiness. There is far more in common between you than the differences created by a borderline decided hundreds of years ago in random wars and brutal, bloody conquests. The world is not going to be made better as long as the oppressed fight one another for the crumbs dropped from the table of the oppressors. Moving on.
Before he moves on, I kind of don't agree with that last bit, because I feel like, you know, from what I'm comprehending from what he just said there is kind of like erase fighting your nation entirely. And I personally don't think it's anything wrong with being prideful of your culture and of your nation. Like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of people are prideful of both being American and Cuban, prideful of being both Mexican and American, prideful of being both, you know, from Laos and being American, proud to be American and being from being Viet. It's people who are proud of their culture and where they currently are, and that's okay. And people do it around the country, like around the world. It's not people. They're people who are French, you know, and they're happy to be French. They have pride in being French and the culture that French has had throughout the years. And it comes to people from Spain and Greece, you know, Morocco, etc., etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with having that pride of your culture in your country. It's when that pride and culture of your country brings harm and hatred into the world and to other people. You can have good patriotism. You know, this video, you know, when it comes to like what he just said right there, at least, kind of has this lens of patriotism in all forms is bad. There is no such thing as good patriotism. It's like, no, everything is just on a spectrum. There's good and there's bad. You know, things aren't just black and white. There's also the gray. There's also things, you know, there's things that are between the lines. And there can be good from being prideful of your culture and being prideful of where you come from when it comes to your nation.
For patriotism to work, you need to have a general idea about what it is you're patriotic about. And this is one of the great debates of American politics. What is the soul of America? Generally, a patriot might answer with something like freedom, opportunity, or justice. And if that's you, those are good things to defend and give value to. I'm right there with you, 100%. But there is no reason that you need to attach those things exclusively to the US. Absolutely defend freedom. Absolutely defend justice. Absolutely defend opportunity. But why connect those things to this vague idea you'll have to defend too? Because both historically and presently, while American political discourse likes to promote these ideas of freedom and justice, American political action and the structures of American politics and the American economy actively work against these things. I'm not going to rehash all of American history to make this point. Suffice it to say that slavery, manifest destiny, meaning the still ongoing genocide of Native Americans, and the various imperial wars the US has led, are all cases where the nation's first goal and economic motivation was suppressing the freedom of people categorized as others, and therefore outside the mythologized community. Defending something like freedom within the context of American patriotism has rarely ever meant actually defending freedom. And it's almost always meant taking it away from those who were in the way of a greater project of wealth accumulation. And I can already hear a commenter saying something like, if the US can be blamed for, say, Jim Crow, then it should also be praised for the civil rights movement. But I'd argue you
like this is meant to be like a joke, but this is a comment that some people on YouTube would actually fucking make in response.
A really difficult time defining something as America and showing it was on the right side of the civil rights movement. For example, if America to you means the community of people living in this country, The majority opinion of the US was decidedly against the civil rights movement, with the press calling its leaders like MLK and Malcolm X un-American. If America means the government of this country, then it too was decidedly against the civil rights.
I'm gonna pause it quickly here. Even in today's society, when you look at social media, and people like to ignore social media because it's, you know, it's the internet. But you understand, like, it's 2023. The internet is more than just, you know, some kind of fictional, you know, entity that we kind of like wish it was. The internet is now being used in a court of law. Your tweets can be brought up in a court of law. You know, these are real things now. But, you know, so anyways, the point, you'll see like people in America will like they'll label anyone who is you know, an activist as a terrorist. It's like, that's a stretch. Like, they haven't terrorized anybody other than, you know, your mentals. Like, it's pretty much like you're being a baby-back bitch because of something that someone said. You know, that's pretty much the only thing that's being terrorized. But they'll call, like, you know, people, especially if you're on the left, if you're a leftist, you call it, if you're FD signifier, there's old white men who will view you as a terrorist. If you're Brie Larson, there's old white men who look at you as a terrorist. And if you're Megan Rapinoe, oh my God, they think you're a terrorist. It's like, it's nonsense. It's like, they're not a terrorist. None of them are. All of them just want a better America. And when you listen to them speak, it's not like they want like awful shit. Like, oh my God, you want people to hire women journalists? Can't happen. You're a terrorist. You want black people to like have more equality? You're a terrorist. Stop it.
Rights movement, sending police to crush the protests. If America means the country's founding documents, civil rights for black people is clearly not what America is all about. When it comes to justice, freedom, and opportunity, these things were not achieved for millions of people by being patriotic, but by working outside of and rejecting what was considered American at their time. If you understand why flying the Confederate flag sends a specific message, regardless of the values people who fly it say it represents, consider how the same things might apply to the American flag. Retroactively, historical moments like the Civil Rights Movement have been folded into the America that one should be patriotic for. But that doesn't mean that freedom isn't still being suppressed in the name of patriotism. When movements for self-determination like BLM and the decolonization movement make waves, for example, the knee-jerk reaction against people wanting a more free society, free for everyone to build their own lives without the threat and exercise of state violence against them, is time and time again patriotism. BLM and decolonization proponents are ruthlessly attacked by an angry mob mobilized not against their ideas, but by the "They Hate America" slogan repeated endlessly on conservative media. These movements are indeed contesting the hegemony.
And like I mentioned, Megan Rapinoe, a lot of people say she hates America. You ask them, well, why? They say because she said so. I was like, when? They can never point you to like an actual comment by her where she says she hates America. But yeah, you can find a lot of comments by her where she says she loves America and she just wants America to be better. And, you know, she's an activist for, you know, gay rights, anything like LGBTQ. She's advocate for minority, anything that comes to like minority, especially like, you know, Black Lives Matter, things like that. Like she's just a leftist activist essentially who plays sports. And because of that's who she is, a leftist activist who plays sports, they think and they just assume she hates America. So they spread that rhetoric on the internet. Megan Rapinoe hates America, even though she doesn't. Same thing with Brie Larson. I've seen people say Brie Larson hates white men, and it's like her partner is a white male. She hates white men, but her dating partner, her significant other, is a white male. But they make up these things to themselves, and they put it on the internet, and then everyone else just sucks it in and just repeat it.
Idea of what America is right now, but they are clearly defending the values.
You know, it's also because, you know, Fox News, the Ben Shapiro's of the world, the Candace Owens of the world, they tell them, yeah, they are anti-American. They do hate white men. They do freaking, you know, want America to burn and die and all this stuff. And okay,
American patriots claim to hold: freedom, justice, and opportunity. Finally, we should talk about how anti-communism is a core pillar of American patriotism. Part of the reactionary nature of American patriotism can be explained by the long-standing myths that have surrounded the relationship of the American public with socialist ideas. When movements for justice are called anti-American, they're usually also called Marxist or communist pejoratively. And when movements like the Civil Rights Movement are repackaged into the American...
I mean, to be fair, like I said, for those who don't know my political leanings, I'm basically independent. Yeah, I'm not left or right. I think the idea of a two-party system is stupid. I think both Democrats and Republicans are kind of a bigger issue to our political structure. But with that, I'm also very fair, and I will be fair when it comes to his comment where he says that, you know, people on the left get, like, you know, basically associated as like radicals, terrorists, and Marxists. That also exists on the right, where people on the left will call anyone who's on the right, you know, a fascist and things like that. Like, some of them are fascists, but not everyone who's a Republican is a fascist. And, you know, you can't just mention that, hey, the right labels people on the left when the left also labels people on the right.
American patriotic canon, their radicality and the socialist politics of their leaders like MLK are either outright erased or hotly contested, with some even going so far as to say that if MLK was alive today, he'd be a conservative Republican. Two myths inform this idea. One, that America is ontologically capitalist, meaning that it is in the nature of the United States to be a capitalist nation, rather than the more realistic idea that economic systems come and go, and just because the US has a capitalist economy right now doesn't mean it will forever. And two, that capitalism is the only thing that works, and socialism always fails. The second claim is clearly a myth because this isn't what I would call working, and historically, American foreign policy has been intent on crushing socialism rather than letting it fail on its own like the pro-capitalist claim it will. In this country, anti-communism has been something we've nurtured for a long time, with things like the Immigration Acts of 1903 and 1918, which enabled the government to deport foreign-born anarchists, communists, and labor organizers, the successive Red Scares during the 20th century, and obviously the Cold War. The notion that anti-communism is patriotic is a really well-established one. The result is that when combined with capitalist realism, this idea of a resolutely anti-communist, ontologically capitalist America makes it seem like there is no alternative, and anyone proposing anything that would clearly improve your life, if they're doing so by challenging a capitalist norm, might be ruining the only thing that we know works, even if it clearly hasn't been working for a long time now. Patriotism, like capitalist realism, really limits our imagination. When people come up with good ideas about how to change things for the better, if we keep calling them un-American and shooting them down right away, this country won't get any better for the vast majority of the people living both inside and outside its borders. And just to be clear before the video ends, this whole video isn't me coming after you for being American, if you are. There's obviously nothing wrong with just being from here. All I'm saying is that it doesn't make a huge amount of sense to be proud of this vague mythology that is at best a mixed bag. And insisting that everyone here be proud of it only makes it harder for us to change the parts we all agree are bad. Constantly thinking in terms of nation-states like this is really blinding us to the fact that we have a lot more to gain by building solidarity everywhere, all over the world, not just within our own arbitrary borders. Let's let go of patriotism in favor of genuine solidarity.
Generally, I think this is a decent video. This is a good thought-provoking conversation. You know, I'm a big fan of conversation in general. There's things said here that I definitely agree with. There's things here that I, you know, maybe just from my own, how I'm interpreting the context, how I'm interpreting the nuance, how I'm interpreting him, and how he's providing his own information is why I'm getting like a lot of disagreements when it comes to like, you know, like I said before, it sounds like he doesn't want patriotism to exist, period. And that he also kind of has like this kind of like narrow point of view of only America has patriotism, when it's like, no, every country does. It's just in America, we only see American related things. But like, you know, people from Japan are proud to be Japanese. Like, they love their country, they celebrate their country, just like America celebrates our country. Then it comes to like China and Russia, you know, I keep saying Greece because, you know, I have friends who are Greek, and I see how they celebrate all the time. It's like every country has people who are proud of their country and celebrate. But generally, I think the big point of this video isn't that the other countries don't have patriotism, but it's that, you know, the people who exist in this country who see patriotism as like the end all be all of being a good American, while also, you know, practicing a lot of hateful things that's un-American and makes patriotism feel like a bad thing. those people who are un-American and hateful, they're bigots and all these things, they make being a patriot seem bad and come off as a bad thing that needs to go away, when honestly there's nothing wrong with being prideful of your country and your culture at the same time, if there's things to be proud of. And that's keyword there, if there's things to be proud of. But anyways, that's it for this video. That's it for me. Hope you all enjoyed. As always, the original video will be in the box below. Go give it a watch if you enjoy the content. Give it a like if you don't enjoy the content. Leave it a dislike. All of that helps the algorithm. Same thing comes to here. Leave a like or a dislike if you want to. But which one you do doesn't actually matter. It all makes the algorithm happy. So I'll catch you guys next one. Y'all stay safe. Because one another, your boy Nubis. Yeah, I'll see you. I'm out. Deuces.